told him number 7. That's that one. He's there. There he is. Let's see if he walks straight in.
That's not the meanest thing in the world.
It's
the meanest thing in the world. You give the kid the wrong address and you're across the street filming it the whole time. That is definitely something I would have done to my friends as a kid. Yeah, bro, just come right over. That house
as a kid,
down.
You would do that to me now if you could videotape
it. Bro, that house looked like it was from Ohio where we went. Steubenville.
No, it wasn't that bad.
What's up, Fawaz?
What's up, guys? That was Frad's house, by the way.
That was what?
That's Frad's house.
Yeah, probably. It looked like Steubenville, bro. I'm telling you, that place is pretty crazy. Listen, I've been looking at the analytics, Rob, and 50% of our viewers are not subscribed.
I know. I just saw that the other day too.
50%, which is insane. Listen, I know we're terrible guys about the like and subscribe stuff, but we do that because we assume you people know you're supposed to like and subscribe. You guys are really slacking on us.
You know what I think the problem is? I got a list of criticisms about you the other day that we should probably go over.
Oh, we are definitely going to address Anthony's criticism. So listen, we're going to read this lovely woman's email. That she didn't leave a comment. I was surprised because Rob sent it to me and I thought it was a comment on the YouTube. I'm like, dude, just delete that. I'm like, not everybody's going to be a fan, right? Like, it's just funny to me that like people will sit through it to hate watch. Like they literally hate watch it, right?
Yeah, this person saw the whole thing.
They watched the entire video. So, all right, so let's go through this. So her name is McScally. So something, I don't know. So, all right. Would that host, Anthony, allow his guests to finish speaking? The pattern of over-talking and interrupting, especially in the first half, highlights lack of mindfulness. It was unpleasant to watch, rude behavior. To go so far as to reach across the speaker to show off a bottle of wine while the guest is making an excellent point was 1, disrespectful to the guest, 2, disrespectful to the audience, 3, shows lack of mindfulness to his own conduct, 4, objectively ill-mannered. Classes in public speaking and practice to avoid overuse of like and giving more respectful attention by facing the guest rather than focusing on intrusive text messages which pop up would set a good example in professionalism. Sweetheart.
Those text messages were probably from me telling you not to do something.
Sweetheart, if you are looking for professionalism, you are on the wrong channel. Oh, we're not done yet. Allow co-hosts to participate. He could have read the questions and be included rather than ordered to correct your mistake. I have reasons for this. Okay, me and Father Isaac are sitting together, and I didn't have my headphones in. I'm using the computer speaker, and Rob talks like this. He's very soft-spoken, which normally on a normal episode is totally fine because it's just us. But we were upstairs, and it was very noisy in my house, and we literally could not hear a word you were saying, Rob. So usually I will say, Rob, do you have any questions? And you'll read the questions and stuff. I could not hear anything you were saying.
That makes more sense now.
I'm sure everybody's loving this lady. So, but it was never meant to be disrespectful to Rob. I'm going to self-criticize after this also. So, okay. So I respectfully ask host to consider admitting he'd be terrified if his son had a vocation. And Father's reply about seminary shows a lack of trust in God. Father doesn't know the future. An apology to your audience for such flippant reply, which is a discouragement to men and families whose sons, brothers, family members, friends are in seminary, is requested. I will apologize for that.
I don't think there's any reason to apologize for that.
I was just being honest. I would be afraid because I don't know which seminary my son should go to. That's all I was expressing there. Now, I will say this.
Legitimate concern.
I want to say this. I am a construction worker, right? Like, me and Rob are learning to do this as we go. Like, I'm not good at like I'm trying to learn to make sure I let other people speak and not speak over them. It's like the art of conversation is very difficult, especially when there's pressure on you. I was very nervous. Father Isaac comes to my house, right? Like I try to be as open and honest with everybody as possible. And the truth is, I'm just a construction worker who likes to talk to people. So I mean, I'm not a professional interviewer. I'm doing the best I can. I don't know if people really see what Rob and I are trying to do here, but one of the main things is I don't like superficial relationships, right? So Fawaz, when I met you, I didn't let it just be like you become a guest on my show. Like I text you literally every day.
Yeah.
Right? Like you're my real friend. Like
Right,
I won't allow you to just be some superficial friend we occasionally stream.
You won't allow him.
Also, I'm not that important, so it's like I'm not like
But
I'm not that guy.
I was talking to Joshua Charles about this too, and I'm like, dude, like anybody that I have on this show, like I want to be their real friend, right?
Yeah.
So like even this thing we're gonna do in PA, it's like I don't like I want a crew, dude. Like I want a crew of guys who are genuine friends, hang out in person, really get to know each other, and like be Catholic together, because it's really hard to do this on your own.
Yeah. So I guess people took it differently. I thought personally, I said it to my wife, and I were listening to the Father Isaac together. She got a lot out of it. All the recommendations he made, she got the book right away to read to her kids. I mean, she went to the Don Bosco YouTube channel. My kids learning all these stories about John Bosco. So we got so much out of it as a family. But I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, wow, Anthony's doing a great job. He's actually letting him speak. So
dude, it's crazy because, well, first off, even inviting him over, you know how nervous I was?
Sure.
Yes.
Like, dude, that's Father Isaac. I've been watching this guy since my conversion, right? Yeah. So he comes over, and thank God I talked to you first, because you, like, I was like, wait, what if he fasts from meat on Wednesdays and stuff? And Fawaz is like, dude, whatever you put in front of him, he's going to eat. Don't worry about it. He's like, you told me that crazy story about him telling the way he made me so nervous.
Did you tell him about that? Did you talk about that?
I actually told him the story. I said, Father Isaac, this might be like a myth or a legend, an urban legend about you, but I heard that like a wife was kind of bragging about going to adoration, and you go, don't go to adoration, you're not a nun. How about you clean the house? The house is a little messy.
Yeah. I remember that story. That was funny, man.
So I told my wife this story, and my wife cleaning the house like crazy. But let me just tell you something, man. He came over. He said the story was true, by the way.
Right.
He came over, man. Dude, such a father figure, but just gentle, right? Like no judgment about any. Like I'm sure there were things he probably could have said about me and the way I run my home and stuff. Like he was just so gentle, so kind, had my whole family captivated with his storytelling. Like such a brilliant storyteller, knows how to really like tell something in a way where you're entranced and you want to hear the ending of it, you know. And it was just such a great time. And then after the show was over, if I didn't have work the next day, he would have stayed until 2-3 in the morning. But I had to wake up at 4 a.m. So I was like, I kind of got to cut this short, guys. I'm sorry.
Gotta go.
Like Joe Boca came. Joe Boca was there for the whole show, sitting on the couch, just listening. Like,
no way.
Yeah, Joe Boca was there. He came for dinner.
Shout out to Joe Boca.
Joe Boca, Father loved him. Like he was just so like they just had such a great chemistry. They agreed about so much and stuff. Like I want Father Isaac to be my friend also. I don't want it to be just, hey, we get him on for an interview occasionally. I want him to know when he's in New York, he's coming to my house for dinner, and he has a friend and family to come and stay with when he's around. Like it's, you know, it's like I really hate the idea of like, because I see a lot of other guys do that. Like they'll have somebody on their show, but there's no chemistry. There's no real friendship there, right?
Yeah.
It's like really, I feel bad for Rob because he gets dragged into all of these things that I do. But the news from the Pew crew,
year and a half now.
The news from the Pew guys, like you guys you were my first victims. I was like, no, we're friends. You guys, there's no saying no to this.
We talk every day. Can I tell a quick story about what you just said? So you had Father Isaac on. You said there's probably a couple of things you could nitpick about your family. When I was in San Diego, we had Father Rippiger over for the retreat. We were smoking a cigar outside. But there's the day before he went. I had to drop him off at the airport for him to go back. And I'm sitting there smoking a cigar, and I was talking about, just family life in general. And he goes, out of all the homes that I've been to, there's only one guy who's ever done it the right way. It wasn't me, by the way. So I'm looking at him like, what are you trying to say, bro? like it's just, it was a nice way for him to say, you got some work to do.
Yeah. It's funny because we look up to these guys, right? Like these are the guys that really literally formed our spiritual lives in some ways. Like
absolutely
gave us a love for the faith and stuff. So it's like,
especially Father Isaac, man.
Yeah.
I'm a big stan.
He's just such a big figure in my conversion and everything. And like to actually get to sit and hang with him and have a real conversation with my little sister who's going to she's going to join the Passionist Nuns. She came over, she met him. He was so good to her. He was just such an awesome person. I'm so glad like I got the opportunity to like befriend him, It's like I'm really hoping he comes to Pennsylvania with us. It'd be really awesome.
Oh yeah,
that would be cool.
I'd love to meet him.
Yeah, how fun will that be? Because we got Father Dave Nix coming, and now I think he's inviting one of your friends now, right?
Yeah, that was a surprise. That's great. I mean, Jonathan's a good guy.
Yeah, it's just like anybody that'll mesh with that crowd. I don't care. Let them come.
Yeah.
Like let's go do something. So me and Rob got a bunch of stuff to do tonight. We got
a ton.
I sent them a lot of stuff. You want to do silly videos first, though, Rob?
Yeah. Before that, we should do the Spiritus video, though.
Yeah, do Spiritus. Yes. Let's hear our friend Rick Barrett, who could not join us tonight, but he's with us in spirit and voice.
Yep, in spirit.
I'm not gay no more. I am.
Wrong one. Sorry, Rick.
Oh man.
Are you tired of searching YouTube for something that won't make you run to confession? Let's talk about the Catholic video alternative platform, Spiritus TV. Spiritus TV is the only video platform that is guided by Catholic morality. That means you will not have to worry about the influences of modernity on you and your family. In a time where YouTube is promoting whatever flavor of the month degeneracy, and all these supposed alternatives are the same thing with a different coat of paint, Spiritus TV is here for you, your family, and the faith. Check us out at spiritustv.com. That is spiritustv.com.
I love that Spiritus is starting to get their stuff together, man. Like I really want to see that platform jump off. Yeah, wrong one. Like Rob didn't listen to me.
I rarely make mistakes.
Rob does not do anything on accident. Man, people don't understand.
That was brilliant, man. That was brilliant.
He's brilliant, but Fawaz, he always knows when exactly to throw someone off. Like it's like he just the comedic timing of Rob just kicking somebody off the stream right when they're gearing up to say something important.
It's really hard on videos where we need to be serious.
It really is. All right, so wait, we have
no more.
Wait, where's what are the videos I sent you? Okay, so let's go with the guy jumping off the roof.
Wow.
Yeah, Alex, it really was a blessing getting to hang out with him and know him. It really was awesome. All right, we're gonna go with this one. This one's actually quick. It's pretty funny.
You already scraped your knee up.
Dude, how did you butcher that? Why would you do that? He just destroyed the whole pool too. I'll never understand people, man.
It's probably a Hispanic household.
What do you like every race?
I spent years with them, man. I know what they do.
I'm having a hard time breathing. And then Rob, you see the one with the guy with his hand on the wheel? This is our weekly women driver segment. We got a weekly women driver segment.
Real women drive their own trucks.
Oh, that was great.
You just see it's a woman driver, and she just tried to drive. I want to put this light on brighter so you guys can see me.
Real.
It blinds me when I do. It's terrible.
That was a good find.
Dude, just look at her truck. Real women drive trucks. It's totaled, of course. Then we got the Just Stop Oil folks. We just do our goofy, silly video segments real quick, and then we get into heavy topics. We do have some good topics for you guys tonight. Don't worry. We're going to get into some good stuff.
Okay.
Let's do this one. Because this one I want to talk about. So you see this a lot, right? These clowns blocking the roadway. If this ever happened, and like, if this happened and they were holding me up for hours, like, I don't know if I could restrain myself from grabbing one of them by the neck and just like throwing them like a rag doll. Like, I'm always amazed at the patience people have with these kids. Like, they're kids and they're just idiots.
Yeah, they did actually prevent a woman from getting to the hospital with her baby sometime over the last week.
I saw that, yeah.
In the past couple of days, right? Like, how do people not react to this? I don't understand. We're in a weird time in our society, right? Where people are just like allowing children to run amok and nobody's being a parent figure, and they're just allowing these children to do whatever they want.
Yeah, it's
Fred
crazy.
Simon says he had somebody jumped on the hood of his truck. That's crazy. Like, so Fred lives like far upstate New York, like really far upstate New York, like Buffalo area, I think. And it's pretty wild because you would think like upstate New York would be like rural country stuff, but they have like in Buffalo especially, it's very liberal, man. Like, you get these little enclaves in upstate New York. So I was up in Deposit, New York over the weekend with another couple. Me and my wife went up with our friends. They have a house up there and they invited us. And that's like real rural New York. But then you go to like these little towns where they're like hipsters moved up there and they made it like, and you go in an upstate town and on every shop window you have Love is Love and BLM and all this stuff. And it's such a weird thing, right?
The town I work in is like that. It's an old mining town, 3,000 people, but it's become, a tourist spot for, outdoors type people, more or less hippies, environmentalists and stuff like that. So all the businesses along the main street they have pride flags, in their windows and all sorts of stuff like that. So annoying.
I think that is so calculated, though. I think that like the whole point of this thing is so that they infiltrate these small town America. Like, I think, right? Like, because they always had it in the cities. But then once you start getting into small town America, it's like, do you deal with any of this in your area, Fawaz?
No, not really.
You're still in red country?
Pretty much. Yeah, very much so.
Yeah, you're blessed though, because I'm telling you, like, part of their plan is that, like, you saw that song that came out the other day, right, where the country singer wrote the small town song, and then he caught all that grief for the video and stuff. There are still small towns like that, but there's also this infiltration of these small towns, and I think a lot of it has to do with because they're so separated, because you have neighbors are a mile apart sometimes, right?
Yep.
These kids are all trapped online.
Yes.
And they get into these viral TikTok trends. And then all of a sudden, in the middle of nowhere, you have this non-binary kid growing. Like, and I don't understand how the parents don't get a hold of this stuff. It's crazy.
You know what's horrible about the whole viral TikTok stuff that's going on? We know the way the concupiscence works is when you feed the lower faculties that desire, it always seeks something more. This is why you have somebody who's addicted to things on the internet. It never stays on that level. It always has to get more perverse. And that's what we're seeing a lot with that one guy in Missy over in UK going to people's homes and doing things that they have to top their last because the viewers they get sick and tired of the same old stuff. Now I got to do something even crazier just to get the attention of people.
Good thing we never do that on this channel.
Yeah, you guys keep it nice this way. But all I gotta say this, man. Listen, if you think your life is bad, Stevie Wonder out here paying $25,000 a month in child support from kids he ain't never seen before. So it ain't that bad for the rest of us.
Was that just a blind joke?
Yes, sir.
Dude, Fawaz, you guys have like a really beautiful community with your parish, though, right?
I can't ask for better, man. It's insane. It's a beautiful community.
For any, because we have a lot of new viewers and stuff, and here's what's really funny. Like, I met Enoch by seeing him on News from the Pew, and I reached out to him. Rick, because I knew Steve Cunningham already. And I was like, I was just looking for like interesting people to come on our show. We were just starting, and I'm like, I don't like Rob. Let's try to like expand this thing and talk to people and stuff. And so me and you met. You came on trivia, like that's how we met. The first time I was hanging out was you coming on trivia.
Yep, Rob has invited me.
Yeah, you told like a bunch of hilarious jokes while we were on. Like we clicked right away. And then my cousin is moving to Kentucky out of nowhere, and I'm like, holy cow, this is my cousin. He's like a couple years younger than me, but he's like beyond close. Like I would consider he's my mom's twin sister's kid who I grew up with. My conversion is very intertwined with his because we moved to work together, listening to Scott Hahn tapes together and stuff. Like you can't really separate my conversion from his. He moves to Kentucky out of nowhere, doesn't know anybody, goes to mass, and his wife recognized you from being on the trivia show.
Right.
And Ariana is very extroverted. She's like my wife, and she's very extroverted. And she went right up to you and she was like, you know my cousin, right? Like,
yeah, the way it happened was it's funny because she told your cousin, she goes, no, that's Enoch. And his response is, no, Enoch's like 5'2". He thought I was a little short because I just looked short on the screen. So I'm 6 foot.
His beard's like a third the height of him.
Yeah. So
it's crazy.
That we met. I'm actually we were at the baptism for the new baby. My wife and I were the godparents for the new baby.
What?
Yeah. They asked
you are my cousin's new child's godfather.
Enoch,
yes,
you're going to start a family argument here.
No, not. What are you kidding me? That is like so unbelievably awesome to me. You're my cousin's new baby's godfather. Why didn't Eddie tell me?
I don't know. We saw him on Saturday. We had a great time. It was a great baptism,
dude. So watching. So now Eddie's wife goes up to Enoch, introduces herself, and they become friends, right? And Enoch literally welcomes my cousin into this parish family. Like my cousin was really nervous moving there. He didn't know anybody. All of a sudden he's got this family down there, and like it was just so amazing. Like that, if you were never on trivia, he might have never had the nerve to come. I mean, you guys would have eventually probably met, I guess, but just having that connection where like I'm friends with you and now he's friends with you. So part of this whole trip we're doing in the PA is because you and Eddie are going to drive up together.
Yeah.
And we're going to go meet. And it's like, it's just funny how God like really, like you see God's providence in the whole thing, you know. It's like I met you first, and then all of a sudden you and my cousin are really close. For your godfather to his kid, I mean, I can't even believe that. That's so wild.
Yeah, I gave him an offer he couldn't refuse. But no, it's really great. I'm looking forward to meeting you guys the most, and it's gonna be a blast.
It really is just so cool to like to see that an online thing can develop into actual real friendships, right? Like
yeah.
Like because so often like you know people are on Twitter and it's like Twitter is this toxic place and this and that, but it's like I've met, I mean Rob's now my best friend. This poor guy's got to deal with me all day, like, literally all day he's got to deal with me. It's like
I rarely wake up without a message from you on my phone.
That's awesome.
Almost every day, right? And it's like, and I'll never forget the I was away with my wife one weekend and I called Rob while I was away and I was like, listen, we're getting away from trivia. We're getting away from all this stuff. We're going to start doing some more serious conversations. And it was like that conversation I had with him while I was away with my wife when I came back is when we did the Danielle like mystery series. And like everything just kind of took off from that conversation. It was pretty cool.
You just admitted to everyone that you're the reason trivia doesn't happen anymore.
Don't lie, Rob. You're the one that won't let me do it.
Just said it.
Oh, I did admit it, didn't I?
Yeah.
I totally admitted it. Paul says, I want Enoch to be my godfather. All right, so let's get into leftist meltdown mode. So I'm pretty sure anybody that's on Twitter knows the...
No, we can't call it that.
X.
Oh, the X. The X meltdown. Well, it was Twitter when this happened, so... all right, Rob, pull that up. Pull up the Right Scholar tweet or X, whatever the heck it is now.
I think it's Zeet or something. But anyways, which tweet am I pulling up? Am I pulling up the one where he confesses?
I really shouldn't vague tweet one.
The porno brain one, yeah.
Oh, you know what? No. Start with the original. Like, go to actual Twitter with the original USCCB thing, because let's look at some of the comments on.
No, the USCCB thing is a whole separate thread.
Yeah, and I don't know if I want to put people's names out on blast like that, right?
Who's,
Like, I don't want to. I actually criticized Lofton for doing that to me, so let's not do that to anybody. Maybe I'll just read them.
Okay.
So can you put the picture of the USCCB put up?
Yes.
It's pretty crazy. So the USCCB promoting NFP put up a picture at a mass, and it said, Christian marriage creates the marital communion of persons, one flesh, given and received, mirroring Christ's spousal love for his bride, the church, especially as he gives himself in the Eucharist. And the priest offering mass is offering it ad orientem.
The bishop.
And he's a bishop, right? So you see this meltdown where really I probably should have screenshotted a bunch of them. Not Right Scholar, the other guy, Massimo Fagioli. He starts bugging out. This is did he ask permission from his bishop to be saying the old right and the USCCB? How dare
You're thinking Austin.
Oh, Austin Ivory. That's right. Yeah. Not Massimo Fagioli. And it's just crazy that people really, even in a Novus Ordo setting, if a priest is facing ad orientem, it sends the leftist Catholics into a rage. Like, it actually infuriates them, and I don't understand it.
The only other group I would ever imagine that would be viscerally affected by the mass like that would be demons.
Yeah, like what a weird, strange situation, right?
Yeah,
so you start getting so many people. Oh man, I just lost it. Darn it. People saying what a weird picture that the USCCB posted. So funny, Rob. You're all over the replies on this.
I know. I am.
If you guys go to that thread, Rob is all over it. So let's see. Bizarre, the USCCB would post an ad orientem nuptial mass, considering their push to ban it across the. Oh, that's.
Well, here's one. This post and picture obviously is a FU to Pope Francis. Shame on the sorry lot of you crypt keeper MAGA bishops for your disobedience and disrespect to the Holy Father.
Yeah, like they take it as a personal offense.
And then I posted a picture of Francis celebrating ad orientem underneath it.
Oh, really? There was one of those?
Yes.
Oh, man, that's so funny.
That
I don't understand the the visceral reaction to something like that. It's like it really makes you see that, like, even the people who like the Where Peter Is crowd, like, they try to feign this loyalty to the Pope, right? They try to feign it like this is, we're just being obedient to the Pope and you guys are being schismatic. You have a schismatic attitude, things like that.
Yet they were the most disobedient people under Benedict.
And the thing is, they're not, like, when Francis even says anything remotely, like even this thing with NFP, it's like they're not okay. Like, you really see they don't want NFP. They want artificial birth control. Like, they're actually, and what did I see before? It was I think it was that same guy, Right Scholar, and D.W. Lafferty or whatever his name is, and he's like, read this article and you'll see the real let me find it because I don't want to misquote it. I don't want to misquote it. So
while you're looking for that, Jacob here says, can someone help me understand the Pope? I'm an ex-Latter-day Saint. Is the Pope like the prophet in the sense that whatever he says is dogmatic?
Wait, I'm sorry. Read that again, Rob. Can someone help me understand the Pope? I'm an ex-LDS. Okay, so that's Mormon, right? Is the Pope like the prophet in the sense? No. Okay. Rob, you'd probably be better at handling this one than me, right? Like he's as like in.
So he's definitely no prophet or oracle. There can be no new revelation after the death of St. John. The Pope, a lot of what he says and does can require religious submission of of intellect and will. Not everything, but a lot of it. But there's very few things that are infallible, and they can't ever, of course, contradict prior infallible doctrines or divine revelation. So in reality, the Pope historically has been very limited and is really there as the principle of unity, and it is there to guard the deposit of faith.
Jacob, can you tell us how long you have been Catholic? Like, did you just come into the church recently? Like, because that would help me to give you maybe a better understanding of what we're dealing with right now. Like, because what we're seeing with this pontificate is unlike anything we've ever seen before.
Yeah, Fulton Sheen had a good explanation. It's the banks of a river. You know, if the deposit of faith is the water flowing down to the next generation, the Pope is the one that's supposed to keep it within the flowing of the river, not have everything come outside of it. So it's a pretty good explanation.
I haven't heard that before.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's not actually, so he's just starting RCIA and stuff. Okay, so Jacob, you really are coming in a wild time. And it's honestly, it's a sign of God's grace that he's still calling people to the church while we're in this kind of mayhem right now, because there's so much upheaval. And you know what? I'm going to I want to jump in and read this article because Bishop Strickland actually tweeted this out, and that's why I sent it, Rob. So, Professor Rist, the Catholic Church could be facing a crisis worse than the Arian controversy of the 4th century. So, Jacob, I don't want you to be discouraged in coming into the church. Like, this is still the church. We're just going through something very, very unique right now. And I don't think any of us ever could have anticipated what we're going through. I mean, if this was under Benedict, we'd be the ones fighting for Benedict, you know, we're just in a very strange time. So the recent suspension of an Italian priest for writing a scholarly critique of Pope Francis's apostolic exhortation Amoris Laetitia was a foolish and wholly unjust decision, but one that underlines the depth of the crisis in the church that could be worse than the Arian controversy. Regarded as one of the church's finest living scholars of ancient philosophy, classics, early Christian philosophy, and theology, Rist believes the suspension in April of Father Tullio Rotondo would never have happened under a previous pontificate, and put the decision partly down to an over-centralized papacy that has allowed bad popes to act lawlessly and with impunity. Which that's a strange phrasing, right? To act lawlessly. Because when you get into the whole idea of the catacomb, we're talking about lawlessness. The catacomb is the restrainer of lawlessness. And really the papacy has always acted as a restrainer of lawlessness. Mm-hmm. More so when society was more united with their Christian heritage, I would say, right? Mm-hmm. So even once Christendom broke apart and after the Reformation, you still had society which was ordered towards a Christ-like natural law type of society, where in the past couple of decades, especially since the sexual revolution, you're starting to see not only is society not following natural law, they're starting to legislate unnatural law. Yep. Which is a sign of when you fall into mortal sin, like St. Paul talks about, sin darkens the intellect. Yep. And that doesn't just work on a personal basis for each individual. That happens on a cultural level as well. Oh, yeah. So you get to the point where we have a Catholic president who's legislating and pushing these unnatural laws upon people. And it's a very strange thing, because even with the passing of same-sex marriage, that didn't happen until after Benedict steps down. Like, it's a weird thing, right? It was almost like they were waiting for him to step down before that could happen. And I remember, I really want to talk to Jesse Romero about this, because I remember Jesse Romero, I was seeing videos of him, and he was like, when Obama was pushing this stuff through, he goes, "You think you're going to go up against the Catholic bishops and you're going to get away with it?" Like, really had faith that the Catholic bishops were going to stand up to this and put their foot down. And it was just such a letdown. When I tell you, not even a whimper out of these men. Nope. They just let it slide right through. It was not even.
I remember that time too. Yeah.
Yeah. If you guys, if you guys haven't heard Enoch's latest song about Miss Cow, he actually released a new one today too, right? Well, you were a feature on that one.
Oh, that's an old one. I just shared it. Yeah. Thanks, brother. Thanks for listening to that one. Appreciate you.
But yeah, like what we're seeing now is such a it's such a strange thing, like to be Catholic in this time. And I was listening to Jordan Peterson talk to Bill Maher. He was describing the story of Jonas, and he was talking about how Jonah.
Yeah.
When Jonah gets the call from God to go to Nineveh, and he doesn't listen, and all of a sudden the storm hits and everything. Now we're going to get into this with Kennedy Hall on Thursday because I have a whole thing on Jonah that I think everybody's going to love. Rob's heard it already because we went over that when we were doing the the Chosen review. But he said it's like when something needs to be said, like God puts it on your heart to say something that's true, and you don't say it. That's when the storms hit. Yeah. And if you continue to disobey God, you end up in hell. So like Jonah describes like when he's swallowed by the fish or the whale, he's not describing the intestines of a whale. He's describing Sheol, right? He's describing hell. And it's like when God commands you to say something true and you don't say it, you end up in hell. And I really apply that to our approach on this channel. Originally was, hey, just don't say anything. Let's not say anything about any of this stuff. And it's almost like I feel like people are out there and they're like, what the heck is going on? What does it mean to be Catholic anymore? Are you allowed to be a little upset about this synod coming up? Like, are we allowed to say anything about this? Is it disrespectful to the Pope to even say, hey, these things are raising red flags? Now, Enoch, I know you really are very cautious about the things you say, but you talk about the synod, right? Like the synod's pretty preposterous.
Yeah, I mean, from what I know, from my own understanding perspective, I'm just waiting to see what comes out of it. It's more and more of a wait and see type of thing. So, we can speculate this and that, but well, I mean, here's the thing: I try not to fall into the under this, the sin of despair, and a lot of us can. Priest that we have, the new associate pastor at our parish, great homilist, gave a great image of what's his name, Elijah. If you remember Elijah, after all the fighting that he's been doing, there was this altar to Baal, and then he had the altar to God. He called it once to destroy there, and then he was such in despair. He was so depressed that he asked God to just take me now. I'm ready to go. I can't deal with this king. This queen, she's a witch. He's dealing with this, what we're dealing with at his time. And what happens? An angel comes along and he takes out water and bread and says, "This is going to be enough for you to live off of for the next 40 days. Now go walk 40 days to Mount Carmel." That was God's answer to him. It's like, I'm depressed. Just take me now. I'm done. He's like, you got to walk for 40 days. And it wasn't until he got to Mount Carmel when he got the consolation that he needed. And it's interesting, too, because I'm thinking to myself, if God ended all the issues that we have in the church right now, how many souls will be missed as far as being converted? Because how many souls are being converted because of it? And I try to keep that perspective as well.
You want to know what's crazy? Because last time you were on, when we talked about like what comes next, like in the next conclave and stuff, like you and I were both sharing like how many conversions I've witnessed in my own life under Francis, right? It's like, it's funny how God will use like he'll use certain chastisements to bring people to him, right? Like it's a funny thing. Somebody actually said something weird the other day. They were like, it's easy to love God when things are going good, but it's hard to love him when things are tough. And I found that to be the total opposite in my life. It's like when things are going good, God's like the furthest thing from your mind because everything's going fine. But all of a sudden tragedy hits and it's like, whoa, I need God. I'm on my knees praying, right? I have an older brother who's not going to mass right now. Let's just put it that way. He's very far from the faith. And he's a very interesting person because he's had a couple of instances in his life where he's had health scares. And whenever he gets a health scare, he starts asking me questions. And how's your faith right now? Like, what should I read? Like he's a very reaches out to God in the foxhole type of person. Yep. No atheists in the foxhole. Perfect. Exactly where I was going with this, Rob. So he, last week, a friend of his, same age, 43 years old, is playing golf on his way home, dies, has a heart attack. Okay. This may be jab related. Who knows? Who knows what the heck is going on right now.
Tough.
Now, my brother he got that, right? Like, so he went and he got that during the whatever, when that was all happening. So now all of a sudden my brother's mind starts racing. He starts having anxiety. He ends up in the hospital on Friday. They do a whole battery of tests. Everything comes back fine. Okay. He comes back home. He goes to work Monday, starts feeling major chest pains in his chest on Monday, and he's back in the hospital last night. Now he stayed overnight. They did a whole bunch of tests again. But I see that scenario.
Did you check with him after LeBron's kid?
No, I hope he didn't even hear that. So you know what? Maybe it'll be good if he does hear it though. It's like so I know if but me and my mom were talking about it, and I'm like, Mom, just let God do what He's got to do with him. Like my brother he has this insane existential crisis going on. He always does, and so much of it has to do with him not, because it's not that he doesn't believe in God. It's that he won't even consider it and he won't even think about it. Like if so he was on Survivor, right? I tell this story 100 times, but he was on Survivor. But I was so into his experience on that show. Like I was so supportive of it. And then when I try to tell him about some of the stuff we're doing here, he's just like, he checks out because it has to do with God. And it's like, I was taking offense at it at first, like, because I was trying to tell him about my interview with Tom Holland. I'm like, talk to a New York Times best-selling author. Like, I'm not trying to preach to you, though. I'm trying to tell you something exciting that happened. But he can't listen to it, and he just checked out. And at first I was upset about it. And then I was like, just back off. Like, he just can't face that right now. And it's like, if I would have kept pushing, I might have damaged our relationship.
Right.
Whereas what's happening right now is I know he may reach out to me and start asking me some questions when he has these health scares,
No, that's a good point. Yeah, God works like that too. Yeah, with the whole new I hope he pulls through, of course, Bronny, the 18-year-old LeBron James kid.
Yeah.
He wasn't the only one. There was 4 other just today's article, there's 4 other athletes that had the same thing happen to them. One was a soccer player. That was really horrible. But it's funny when you look at the comments, a lot of people are blaming you know what. And the people who are just have this absolute vitriol attack against people who are blaming that are all the ones that ended up getting it, and now they're scared. It's fear.
Yeah.
It's like, don't you dare say that because I got it. That could happen to me. And that's where the whole thing is coming from. It's all this fear. It's unfortunate.
It's funny how we react when we feel like we're being judged, right?
Yeah.
Like, I see Eric Sammons and Daniel O'Connor today. We're talking about like nudity in films because of the Oppenheimer thing. And Daniel O'Connor talked about even foul language, right? Yep. And at first, my initial instinct was, well, I curse sometimes. I work around construction workers, like I'm a construction worker. Right. He talking to himself. What are you saying? What's the matter with you? Doesn't sound like a clown. So he writes a tweet saying like it's effeminate to curse. And at first I was like, I don't know if it's effeminate. Maybe it's just and I'm like, no, you know what? I kind of needed to hear this because like it's a lack of control of your language, right? Like our tongues are used to bless and curse. It's a strange thing. We praise God with, that's in James, right? You read James and James is like your tongue can defile the whole man. It's like you use your tongue to praise God and then you go and you curse your brother with your tongue. And it's such a like a serious thing that we really have to consider. So I just said I kind of needed this fraternal correction because when I'm around my work friends, sometimes I think I'm trying to show them that, just because I believe in God and I'm Catholic doesn't mean you can't have normal conversations with me. Like, don't think I'm like I don't want them to think I'm a Jesus freak, but at the same time, I don't want them to think like this doesn't matter to me. Like I can't be too much in the world. Like you have to be in the world, but not of it. So it's a delicate balance to like share your witness and let people know you believe in God while at the same time being approachable and not some weirdo who's like, have you given your life to Jesus yet? Have you been saved? You know, like, because that's how the Protestants overdo it, I think.
I must give some sort of like some unconscious or subconscious cue when I hear someone, take the Lord's name in vain or something, because at work, someone said the name of Jesus in a negative way. And then I looked at them and they looked at me and they're like, oh, I'm sorry. And I'm like, I didn't say anything, but thank you. So I'm guessing in the past I've maybe shot them a look. I don't know.
So what I will do is I will actually say to people, like when somebody takes God's name in vain in front of me, I'll say, listen, you could drop the F-bomb in front of me. You could say the C word in front of me. It's the easiest commandment to not break taking the Lord's name in vain. There's 10 commandments. The easiest one is to not say GD or take Jesus's name in vain. Like, they're just so simple. Like, it's like, because when you really get into murder, it's like, oh, thou shalt not kill. But like Jesus literally says, if you hate your brother, you're guilty of murder, right? You really want to get into these. So it's like the easiest one to not break is taking the Lord's name in vain. So I usually will say something like that. Like, I could deal with any language. Just try when you're in my presence not to say that. And there's several people that I have gotten to stop using that as much in my presence because
that's beautiful. That's beautiful.
T-Night here mentioned that video that you actually sent me in.
Yeah, so that's funny. I do want to actually talk about that because Rob told me that they're like, I just assumed they were a regular pro-life group. They're not a regular pro-life group though, right?
So they are the...
So we can't play the audio on this because the pro-life girl had such foul language, but they're not a regular pro-life group.
They're the PAAU. I'm not sure what that stands for, but they're like a radical leftist, radical feminist, socialist, LGBT pro-life group. They are the group that found the remains of those children last year. It is that group. But I think they're a very, interesting group in the sense that they're a pro-life, but every other aspect about them is just absolutely abhorrent.
Yeah, so we have the video for it, but there's a lot of vulgar language in it. But they literally get attacked. Like, honestly, if you're going to be going and protesting outside of abortion clinics at this point, you need to have some masculine men with you. You can't go there without men that can handle themselves. Like, you have to be very careful because there's a lot of violence now, right? Like, and especially people that have disordered passions, like their first instinct is to jump to violence. I mean, we see that everywhere in our culture now. I mean, you see especially in certain demographics of people who are confused about certain things, their first instinct is to go to violence. There's videos of one of those guys who wasn't, the correct pronouns weren't used, swings an axe at somebody. It's like we're dealing with a very unhinged group of people in our society right now, so we have to be very careful.
It's what children do. That's how children behave. They're so emotionally children because there's so much trauma, unfortunately, with kids nowadays with the daycare and everything they go through, that they're emotionally stunted. We have 30-year-olds with the emotional capacity of 14-year-olds, and they're just not catching up, unfortunately. So we have literal children, and they resort to violence.
It really does come to a lack of parenting, right? Like these are
everything.
These are children who were never told no or anything, like,
or never actually truly loved in like the real sense.
Yeah.
I think like some of the things that I think is very much lacking in the Catholic conversation space is like the kinds of conversations we should be having with our teenagers. Like, Fawaz, how old are your oldest?
My oldest is turning 9 tomorrow.
Okay, so you're not quite in the teen years yet. I feel like I'm all alone on this road.
You are.
Yeah.
Like all my friends have young kids, man. It's like
that's because you refuse to be friends with people like Eric Sammons who are older than you.
Yeah, I don't know. He's boring. I said that to his face, actually. He goes,
we're all young, dumb, and broke. So
I was talking to Eric, and he was like, I was saying that he has apocalyptophobia, right? Because we've been talking to Joshua Charles a lot, and Joshua Charles is really taking us through typologically, like some of the things that you're seeing happen now are things that have happened before. Like if you look to the book of Maccabees, you see Antiochus Epiphanes and the high priesthood of Menelaus and Jason and all these things happening, and you're seeing a lot of similarities to some of the things we're seeing now. And Eric Sammons puts out a tweet and he goes, I don't understand people that want it to be that Francis is an anti-pope or that we're in some kind of apocalyptic scenario. I don't understand the desire for that. And I said, no, why would you think anybody desires that? It's not a desire. People are kind of trying to figure out what's going on and the implications of some of these things. I said, I think a lot of Protestant converts have apocalyptic phobia because they grew up listening to Kirk Cameron and the Left Behind series, and you guys are all traumatized.
I was one of them. Ray Comfort.
Wait, what?
I said Ray Comfort and Kirk Cameron. Yeah.
He says he was one of them that grew up listening to that.
So he goes. Well, actually, I come from a Protestant. I was a very boring Methodist. He was a very boring Methodist. I go, I'm glad you kept the boring part, Eric. You know? Because some of this stuff is exciting, right? Like, especially when you get a guy like Joshua Charles on, and Joshua Charles, he's not just like reaching and grasping at straws. He's going into like really deep spiritual things here, where he's talking about Peter, like something happens with Peter where, like with the denial, and Jesus prays for him. I pray that you won't lose.
No, Paul, that was Nicolas Cage, not Kirk Cameron.
No, National Treasure. Dude, there's actually a couple of really crazy end times movies on Amazon that I want to watch just for giggles, just to like
the Rapture one.
Yeah, those Rapture movies are so funny, man. Like it's pretty wild how like certain segments of Protestantism actually believe they'll be raptured up and won't have to suffer through the tribulation.
I think this comment by Jacob is funny when he says that he had food storage when he was Mormon, because all those food storage companies are Mormon. All those.
Oh, are they?
Yeah, all those prepper companies are Mormon.
Okay, but let me tell you something. My parents went to Medjugorje, right? And this is late 90s. And my mom, like Y2K was a very big thing. So, Rob, what year were you born?
88.
Do you remember Y2K?
I remember putting our family computer at home through test to see if it would survive.
And that's it? Like it wasn't like a major thing in your home?
I don't know if my parents were anxious about it.
What about you, Enoch? Was it like even mentioned in your house or anything?
A lot in school. I was in the 8th grade.
Okay, so I was in the year 2000. That's my senior year. I graduated the year 2000, right? So,
well, no, you didn't.
Well, I was supposed to. I was the class of 2000.
I was a freshman in high school. My bad. Yeah.
So, my parents go to Medjugorje in the mid to late 90s.
Mary is jealous, by the way. That your parents went to. Mary is jealous. She's never been there.
I thought you were talking about like this person. I'm like,
I thought you were looking at the chat. Yeah, Mary's jealous. She's never been to Medjugorje. So my parents go, and this is like the mid to late 90s, and my mom like really thought like this could be the end in the year 2000. So my whole basement was stocked with cans of stuff. Like I'm talking, and it's like it's funny because that's like very much like the 3 days of darkness thing. Like me and Kennedy were talking about it. It's like people that think like, okay, if you have these candles and you tape your windows, like that's a very like rapture way of thinking, right? Like you're gonna escape the punishment that's coming. It's like a lot of us just have to kind of put our faith in God and just say, okay, God, whatever comes, I'm willing to suffer, and you're not going to be able to protect yourself from some of this stuff. And it's like, I think people that like obsess on some of those private revelations, what could happen is, I'll tell you what happened. My mom stocks the whole basement with this stuff, scared the living daylights out of my older brother. And then when 2000 came and nothing happened, my older brother was really severely affected by that and almost thought all of it was fake because I mean, it seemed like things were escalating to that point, right? Like you see Mary's appearing everywhere, and she's looking at the Fatima prophecies, and she's looking at Akita, and she's looking at, and then she sees Medjugorje, and it just seemed like something was escalating to a crescendo at that point. Pope John Paul II was talking about the end times, all this stuff. So you have to be very careful in relaying private revelation to your children, I would say, especially. Because you don't like, and maybe we'll get into some of the videos that Enoch's been sending us, because a lot of the emotion-based stuff, you guys really have to be cautious with your children, because especially I know Rob and I have like a single story of like a very emotional experience as a kid, and then Enoch was a youth. What was your actual title? You were in charge of youth ministry?
Yeah, all high school.
But now, what was your youth program like? Was it very emotionally based, or what was it like?
In the beginning, till I found the tradition, and I switched.
But you had the authority to do that?
Yes, I revamped the whole thing. Yeah.
And how did they react to that?
We got more kids coming back after confirmation. It wasn't a graduation anymore. The majority of the young adults that stuck around from confirmation to college are now going to the TLM.
Wow.
So
what was it like when you first stepped into this role, and how old are you, and how far along in your conversion are you? Like, give me a little snapshot, and what diocese is this? Like, I want to hear the story, because we were supposed to talk about this when it was just me and you, right, when Rob was out having Philomena. So and we wound up doing our silly Catholic speaker thing, but
you're gonna have to revamp that now that you're one.
Catholic speaker. So
Rob, we'll do one on my channel, buddy.
Okay, good.
I want to get into so like all right, I really don't even know your conversion too much. Like you were raised Catholic nominally? Like, what was your conversion like?
Yeah, I was baptized, confirmed, all that. And then I mean, we were priesters. My parents went to Mass, Christmas, and Easter only. So I didn't have my conversion. Honestly, my conversion came through boredom. I was just bored. Yeah, I was just bored.
I was in a comfortable bed. Rob labored for hours in that uncomfortable chair.
3 nights on a recliner.
Exactly.
3 nights.
You have to push a few times. She's bragging. Settle down, woman. Every woman goes through it. You're not special.
Well, you know what they say, right? You know, a woman has to have a child come out sideways for her to get a glimpse of what a man cold feels like. So if that's happened, you understand what us men go through. But no, I mean, it wasn't. Let's just fast forward. When I was doing youth ministry, when I first started youth ministry,
no. Go back. I want to hear, how old were you? What led to your looking into the faith? What led to your return to the church?
So I always had faith. You know, it was always there. But it was me picking up the Bible, the scriptures, just one random evening, and I just started reading Revelations, and it was just so intriguing to me, very intriguing. And then I ended up having a Protestant mindset, because when you look up stuff on Christianity, Ray Comfort, Kirk Cameron, R.C. Sproul's.
Dude, I literally read an R.C. Sproul book. I was listening when I first have my conversion, I'm listening to Christian radio.
Wow. Okay.
I'm listening to Christian radio, right? And I think there's nothing wrong with it. I'm learning about Jesus on Christian radio. And it wasn't until I heard an anti-Catholic sermon that I went, whoa, what is this? And then I started looking into specifically Catholicism. So that's why I'm asking, like, was there something that clicked that made you go, wait, I need to study my faith better?
Well, I mean, like, I picked every book that you could find. I mean, Lee Strobel, all of Lee Strobel stuff. William Lane Craig,
Case for Christ.
Yep. Case for Faith.
That's actually still I would still recommend that to people early on. Like, The Case for Christ is a very good documentary, and I don't know if you read the book, but there's a documentary called The Case for Christ that I may even send my brother's way if he asks.
It's a good one.
Yeah.
It was my dad who got upset that we were going Protestant. He said, "Listen, you're Eastern. You're like our whole faith, our tradition, our entire heritage is Catholicism." And I said, we don't even go to Mass every Sunday. Like, what do you care? And then he said, I'll tell you what, I don't have the answers, but somebody else might. So do me a favor, for the first 3 months, just go to a local Bible study, this parish right here, and if you're not convinced, then you can be Protestant. And Providence had it. When we got there, yeah, God bless him for sure. But when we got there, it was a biblical scholar that was doing and it was biblical interpretation on the church fathers. My brother and I had no chance.
None.
Because they're undefeated.
None. You were done.
Yeah, so it was over.
So you and your brother together. So,
yeah,
so for people that don't know, Fawaz has a twin brother, right?
Yeah, he's fraternal.
Elijah's your twin brother. I gotta meet him, dude. Can he come?
No.
He can't make it.
No.
Definitely not. Did you throw him the invite?
I'll try again.
Throw him the invite. I want to meet your brother, dude. This is your brother. I want to meet.
I'd love to. Somebody's got to run the business.
I'm gonna call him.
Okay.
I want him there.
Yeah,
okay, so you and your brother together kind of have this conversion together.
Yep.
Okay, so now, all right, so you go through that Bible study, you start taking your faith seriously. Now you get involved with the parish. How old are you at this time?
2008, somewhere around there. I'm in my mid-20s, early 20s.
That's pretty cool. That's
early
pretty young.
20s. Yeah, early 20s, somewhere around there. And then I was sitting at Mass at one point. I was upset that we were going to Mass because the Chargers were playing. I wanted to watch the Chargers play. And then we ended up going to Mass. And then the director of youth ministry at the time stood up and says, "We need more confirmation teachers." And I was like, "I think I could do that." At the time, I'm reading Polycarp. I'm thinking that I'm, the Catholic scholar here. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I knew nothing. I still know nothing. So we're sitting over there. And then I ended up teaching confirmation and got involved in that parish. And 3 youth ministers later, it was a high turnover. People kept coming and leaving. But one of them that came in became one of my best friends. He ran youth ministry and tradition. He was the first one to introduce me to tradition. He came from Thomas Aquinas College, TAC.
Who is this?
His name is Joseph Cunningham. He lives in San Diego.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I learned a lot from him. And when he left the position, they gave it to me. I mean, I have no degree. So this was around 2013. I got married on Saturday. I got the job on Wednesday.
Wow.
Yeah.
Your honeymoon is crash course talking to kids about Jesus.
Right. Yeah. So
this was a big program though, right?
The biggest of the diocese, 400 students a year.
And so what is it like when you first go in? Because I want to get into some of this. Rob, can you pull any of the videos up that Fawaz has been sending us? Why don't we play a video of, let's just play one of the videos that Fawaz sent us, because there's a reason I'm getting into this stuff, and I want the audience to understand where we're coming from. Also, guys, there's a lot of people in there right now. Hit like, subscribe. Guys, if you're not subscribed, please subscribe. It helps the channel grow. Everything is very important. You guys are obviously here because you like us at this point. We're obviously the most interesting and engaging Catholics doing this at this point.
By far. No, really
We're so humble about ourselves too, guys. Come on.
Credit where credit is due, man.
So Fawaz is funny because he knows about Rob's upbringing, and Rob is very he has PTSD from these emotional Steubenville conference type experiences.
For anyone that knows me, it is so antithetical to who I am.
So Fawaz will get a group text. We're in a group text. He'll go, "Hey Rob, you need some motivation today. I got this one for you."
It'll be 20 minutes of me just going off on it.
Wait till you see some of the videos, Fawaz. It's the funniest thing because it'll just be the middle of the day, and all of a sudden Fawaz will be like, "Yo, Rob, I got some inspiration for you to get through your day today, brother. Let's go."
Okay, I got one. Hold
every
on.
time, and I die laughing. You got one or what? All right, Here we go. It's coming. Here we go. Let's play one.
I was an atheist. I didn't believe in God. I didn't think any of it was real. And when I heard that we were coming here, I was kind of upset. I didn't know what to expect, and I was scared because I was going to be an outcast. But last night, I truly felt God. And that is probably one of the best feelings I've had in my entire life. I feel like all the worries in my world just disappeared over these past few days, and I loved this trip, and I'm so happy to be here.
All right, so now listen. I'm so happy that this kid had an experience of God, right? You have to say that. I don't care. Look, God can use any means to bring somebody to Him, and we kind of tease Rob about it because Rob had a lot of these emotional based experiences growing up. And the thing is, the high does wear off.
Well, like he said, he was taken out of his home, out of his daily life, put in with a group of other kids, taken away from all his worries for a few days, and got to listen to some probably pretty crappy music. But I mean, that's the thing. He's taken away. He's taken out of the world and given this experience. But what happens when he goes back to the world and all those worries are still there?
Yeah.
And he's not with these people. He's not having these feelings. In 3 days, for a kid who didn't believe in God, in 3 days, did they instill any sort of knowledge into him? Like when he goes home, does he have anything?
Right?
Right. Does he have a foundation there?
There's no depth to it. And it's like, I think back to something similar that happened. I mean, I've told the story 20 times on the show, but like I went to a youth group in Scranton, Pennsylvania,
Right,
and
sir.
everybody around me is hysterically crying because they got the Holy Spirit. And I'm like, God, do you not love me or something? Because everybody else here is getting the Holy Spirit and I'm not getting it. And I didn't understand. And it really did I didn't get the emotional experience. And that was what messed me up. Because I'm seeing everybody hysterically crying around me and I'm getting nothing. And I'm like, maybe God just doesn't want, I don't know. I don't understand. It didn't make sense. But the problem with these emotional experiences, there's no theological depth to them, right? So that when later on in my life, I have my conversion, it's very similar to what Enoch had, is you don't know the difference in Protestantism and Catholicism. The only thing I had was a true belief in the real presence. My mom instilled that in me.
Wow.
So my mom did such a good job of showing me Eucharistic miracles, and she showed me like Marian apparitions. Like those things are good to show your kid. You just don't want to scare them about apocalyptic stuff because it's pretty frightening for a kid. Like you don't realize what you're saying to a 12, 13-year-old about the end of the world. Like you really got to be careful.
To be fair, Our Lady did show Jacinta hell.
I know that, but saying the end of the world is different than teaching your child about the consequence of mortal sin.
Well, that's true.
Jacinta received special graces for her to see that and still.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you that the fact that Our Lady showed Jacinta and Lucia and all of them hell is what made me discuss hell with my children, because I come from an upbringing where my mother was terrified to talk about hell because you listen to boomers and they all say the same thing. God, we never heard about the love of God. We never heard about the love of God. And I don't believe that's true. I believe that after the council, they just kept saying, we never heard about the love of God, because my mother doesn't remember the council. My mother doesn't remember the traditional Latin mass. My mother remembers having her conversion post-conciliar and and she says the taglines that you hear from all the people from that generation. It's not her actual memory that she has. She has the memory of the things that she was hearing. Because I read the Saints and all I hear about is the love of God. Right?
Yeah. That's true. But the Saints doing it such a, I don't know, it's such a fundamental way because they have a great understanding of what love of God actually means. Like if you read one of the letters of Leonard of Port Morris on the fewness who shall be saved, that's a letter every single Catholic should read. It's called the fewness of those who shall be saved. It can be pretty depressing at the beginning, but when you go down and you start reading, he talks about how God continues to knock even if he doesn't have to anymore. And it just shows you like that his love.
And, okay. All right. Yeah. Two things I want to touch what you just said there, but also I don't want anybody to think I'm knocking these experiences. I'm not.
Right.
Like you definitely and just because I didn't experience something doesn't I don't want to ever put God in a box. Like God works through you differently than he works through me. God knows all of our hearts and how to reach us. So even like we goof around about some of this stuff, like I don't have any issues with people having a charismatic experience of God. None of that. Like that's not. I'm stealing the line from Steve Cunningham. I'm not a no salvation outside the traditional Latin mass guy. I'm not. I do think Jesus is truly present in the Eucharist and the Novus Ordo. Yep. I think there are objective differences and there's an objective. What would you say? Better? It's better objectively to go to the traditional mass, but that doesn't
objectively superior.
Objectively superior, but I would never knock anybody's experience that goes to the Novus Ordo. It's not what I'm getting at. But Wait, Enoch, what were you just saying there real quick? Because I had something so important to say to that.
Leonard of Port Maurice.
What?
The letter from Port Maurice, St. Port Maurice, about the few who shall be saved. But when you go down, he talks about that God continues to knock and knock.
That's exactly right. Okay, so like the thing is, God always is knocking, but he'll never force himself on us.
Correct.
Right? Like he respects our free will so much.
Yes.
So it's like, I don't care. People like you really do have to get to a point where you're like, okay, God, if you're real, show me you're real. Like, knock and the door will be open, seek and you will find. He'll never bombard his way into you. Like, he may hit you upside the head with a 2x4 with a crisis in your life because he loves you, but he still won't force you to believe. Like, it's really, God really does need you to make the choice for him. So
yeah. Well, I again, not knocking any of those, the atheist kid, kudos to him. And sometimes to have that emotional experience, I guess you could say, can open someone's will towards God, but that has to be fed through true faith and true catechesis. But what my experience with youth is, they get so addicted to that emotional experience, they go back and seek it every single year with these conferences.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens between these conferences is there's just normal life. But guess what? If I get my once a year conference, I can reignite my faith with Christ. That's not faith.
No, it's like you gotta go.
Like
you gotta go.
What you said earlier, Enoch, on a different subject, like they feel like they have to keep topping it.
Yes. Yep. They have to.
Yeah, you go conference hopping to get that high back, right? So now, just to touch on Jacob here. So he says, all I know is the same Jesus I knew as a Pentecostal was the same Jesus in the Catholic Mass. The Holy Ghost is a gentleman. There's one benefit Protestant converts have is that, like, I think a lot of Catholics focus so much on like magisterial documents and the lives of the saints that they don't have a true love for Scripture and really knowing Jesus Christ, that personal relationship that they develop. And it's like, because I kind of came in through Protestantism, like my first experience was really falling in love with Jesus and falling in love with Scripture, and then going into the church stuff. And it's like, I really do think there's something beautiful about meeting Christ and I'm not saying that's the preferred way or anything, but there's something beautiful about being a convert where you have such a deep love for Jesus and Scripture, and then you find the fullness of the faith in the church. That's why some of the best Catholics are converts, because like they really believe this stuff. You know, it's like so many of us Catholics, we take it so for granted being cradle Catholics, like the richness of what we really have at our disposal.
Right. Well, let's be honest. How many of us would appreciate the TLM if it wasn't for the Novus Ordo?
Dude, my priest gave a great homily on that. Like, he really did. He said, look, we talk about mutual enrichment, right? Because me and Nick Cavazos talked about this, and that was another interview that without Rob, I was in charge of comments and talking, and I kept talking over Nick, and I feel really bad about that.
It was a funny one to listen to later.
I kept talking over. I'm so obnoxious when I do that, man. I'm sorry. But he was talking about mutual enrichment with me, and he's like, what has the traditional Mass benefited from the Novus Ordo? And I should have said this, because you want to know what? It's like, until you don't know how much you love something until it's gone. And I really do think people were taking for granted the traditional Latin Mass, and growing up in the Novus Ordo, then getting exposed to it, it's like you see a fervor in people where they're like, no, I love the Mass. And it's like, I don't know if you would have had that unless it was taken away like that.
That is absolutely true.
Yeah, you can't judge something. It's hard to judge something by itself. You need something to compare it to. So you don't realize you have the pearl of great price until you see the crappy little pearl that you used to like.
That's absolutely true. Yeah. To go back to the whole youth ministry, if you don't mind me saying, of course, I blame the parents first, but my biggest, because catechesis starts at home. But my biggest thing is, I said this to you guys before, the reason why youth ministry is such a shambles at the moment, it's because, and this is a temptation that I went through as well throughout my youth ministry, is when you put these retreats together or put the night together, you want to see some consolation of visible return at that moment. And if the kids are not crying or visibly and emotionally giving themselves to Christ, you think oh, I didn't put a good retreat together. And then it really becomes more of your ego than it does for the kids. But in all reality, what you're giving them is damaging their faith more than it's helping them. So that's the temptation I think directors of youth ministry need to get out of. You can have a dry, boring, intellectual, maybe sitting down and in an adoration with the Gregorian chant. And I will tell you this. I had 2 separate nights with youth ministry. At the end of the year, I have a survey of what their favorite night was. And one night was this whole, Jesus rock and roll type stuff, and it was all of bells and whistles. Another night, I asked the young priest, I said, can you come and just sit in the back to hear confessions? I'm going to have Gregorian chant and adoration for 2 hours. Not one kid got off his knees for those 2 hours, and the lines for a confession were long. We didn't get through all. It was 2 hours. We didn't get through everybody. At the end of the year, I asked, what was your favorite night? 90% of them pick that night. We cannot be afraid because we get so scared. Oh, they're going to be bored. But it's like, you can't be bored with Christ if you truly present it. Yeah, it's
so. All right, so look, I'm going to tell you. All right, so my kids are teens now, right? So it's like my son. I have no. Like he grasps it. Like he loves the deeper concepts and things like that. Mm-hmm. Like teenage girls, my youngest we're good. Like, I'm still catechizing her. My middle daughter rolls her eyes at this stuff still. Like she's not like she's a teenage girl. And it's like, I'm trying to figure out, because they're getting the catechesis. I talk to my kids constantly about stuff. Like I'm always, I actually did catechize my daughter's confirmation class for her. So like I tried to do that, but it's like sometimes a kid's just not interested in it. And it's like, it's hard to, like, you can't just take your kids to mass and expect that they're picking up on these things. So what I've been trying to do is just have like real meaningful conversations with my daughter and just making sure that I tell her, Sophia, you just need to know how much you are loved. Mm-hmm. You are a child of God. Don't ever forget that, because you want to make sure your kids don't fall into the trap of just what all the other kids are doing. You want your kid to have a conscience and to not be a follower. And it's like, I think I've done a really good job of raising her to be an independent thinker and stuff, but I want her to fall in love with Jesus. It's just, you can't force that on a kid, and God won't force his way on them. Right. So it is a tricky thing, It's like, part of me is like, maybe I should send them for one of these emotional experiences,
Sometimes, if somebody's grounded and they have the foundation, they know, these things can be beneficial. But you're talking about the love of Jesus. If you love me, you'll do my commandments. Like, that never stops. That continues on to your last breath.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good advice, Paul. That's actually good advice.
My favorite memories some of my favorite memories
great advice.
End of growing up were we had a 24/7 perpetual adoration chapel in our parish growing up, and my grandparents would always take like a 2 to 3 a.m. slot on like a Thursday or something, like the one no one else would take, right? Because they didn't, they were retired, they could do whatever. So anytime I didn't have school the next day, or whatever, I would go with them to adoration, literally in the middle of the night. I would sleep for a few hours, get up, go to the hour of adoration with them, pray the rosary with them silently, and then go back to their place to sleep. And those are my favorite memories of the faith.
Yeah. So Mary Ann's asking if she prays the rosary. So she doesn't pray it on her own. She prays it with me when I make them, right? So the thing is, like, I know later in life, my kids will look back on the family rosary with fond memories. They don't know it in the moment, though, because I remember that. Like, I remember some of my fondest memories with my mom, and my mom just sitting upstairs and praying with me, right? But like in the moment, it's like, I don't want to pray. Like, it's like, it's. Look, I'm going to be honest. Why I share this with everybody. I don't want anybody to think I'm some amazing father and catechist. Like, I'm trying to just be honest with you guys that are coming up on raising kids that are going to become teens. It's not always so easy. And it doesn't matter how much you teach them. Like, sometimes God just has to work in his own timing. And I don't know how God's going to work, but I know God loves me, and he loves me so much that he loves my daughter, and he wants her to to have a relationship with him. So I kind of have to also say that God is bigger than some of my mistakes, if I made any mistakes. And a lot of it comes down to just setting the best example I can, showing them how real this is to me, and letting God work in our children's lives at some point, right? And there's a lot of parents drop the ball when their kids were young and had a later conversion, and this breaks their heart, and they're like, they look back and like, I messed up so bad when I was raising my kids, and now they're not converted, and now it's like you can't even have that conversation with them because it just causes strife when you have, it's like, never underestimate the power of prayer and fasting, though, because I was going through that with my wife when I first converted and she didn't convert yet. And I had a Lent that I dedicated every one of my penances to my wife's conversion. And I'm talking beginning of Lent, she wanted nothing to do with it. By the end of Lent, my wife had a deep faith in Jesus Christ. So it's like, that's the only hope I could give to anybody. And that's kind of the,
I think with your daughter, I think the thing that is going to help the most, and it might not help right away. It might take a few years, after she goes off on her own, but I think it's going to be just her seeing you and the way you live your life, the way you provide for your family and for her, how much you love your wife and love your kids. She's going to go into the world and see that that's not the norm, right? That's not the way other people live. And she's going to wonder what made you different, what made her life growing up different. And she's going to recognize that it was the faith.
Yeah, it's funny. Like, all right, so we go out on the boat the other day, and it's me, Nicole, and Nikki and Sophia. My youngest wasn't with us, so I had the two older ones with me, and I'm like, we're gonna have some real conversations today. And I'm like, by the end of the boat ride, my daughter was just like, Dad, sometimes I just want to spend time with you, and I don't want to have these deep conversations. Sometimes I just want to hang out with my dad. And I'm like, Sophia, I'm so sorry. You don't understand how much of a burden of responsibility it is to be a dad. Like, you don't know how much you worry for your children's souls. It's all like you talk about carrying a cross, like your children's souls are such a heavy cross you carry as a parent. Right. It really is. Like, and we always talk about like being the leader, protector, provider, right? Did they try to swim up? No, they stayed on the boat. But we always talk about being leader, protector, provider. But Don's in a similar situation to what I was just talking about, right? Like, so now his son's an adult, and Don wants to bring him to the traditional mass, and his son's like, no, I'll go to the Novus Ordo. And it's like, it's a hard thing to make up for maybe some of the mistakes you made when he was younger and things. And Don, I'm sorry if I'm sharing something personally you didn't want me to. But I'm dealing with that right now. So it's like, I know like I'm making some mistakes and stuff, but I'm really just trusting God that God's going to pick up the gaps where I'm missing. But yeah, it's like the burden of the priesthood is something we don't talk to men about nearly enough. Like a lot of us think like it's just about like being a man is just lead, protect, provide. That lead has so much to do with being a priest in your home and really making sure your children's souls don't fall into mortal sin. So I've said before, like, do you guys have any like practices with confession your kids haven't made their communion yet, right, Rob? But like Enoch, with your older ones, like what's your practice with confession with the older ones?
So I got one who had his first communion. He did his confession. He did great, and he continues to do great. He knows what he does. And my wife, God bless her, she went to Catholic school, and you know how Catholic school can be. They could really drive a lot of scrupulosity in souls, and she was one of them. Unfortunately, she's the type of like, just tell me what to do, and I'm just gonna do it. I just wish there was like a list of all the mortal sins and I could just avoid them. And I'm just like, it doesn't work like that, You have to understand there's an aspect of relationship too, and it's not just rule following here. And she like takes out the examination of conscience, and she goes to like, I'm like, you're the kid doesn't understand this yet. He knows what he does that it's considered a mortal sin, And then so I'll send him off to confession, but I'll sit with him and I'll go, all right, buddy, like let's look at the last month this has been a confession. Talk to me about some of the stuff that you think that you did wrong, and then he doesn't tell me exactly what it is, and we just set up a foundation, and he writes them down, and then he goes in and confesses. I'm just trying to help him understand, like, this is the stuff. but as he gets older, I'm going to start incorporating some of the examinations of conscience so he can understand it a little bit more.
So what I did when they were younger is I said, look, here's a good rule of thumb to follow.
Yeah.
And I know this isn't perfect because I understand there's 3 elements to mortal sin, right? It has to be grave matter, full consent of the will, and full grave matter, full like understanding of it, and full consent, right?
Yeah.
So I told my kids, I said, look, a good rule of thumb is this: if you know something's wrong and you do it anyway,
confess it.
Like that's a really good indicator that you're dealing with a mortal sin, right? Like the only thing missing there is grave matter. But even if it's not grave matter, like if you know something's wrong and you do it anyway, that kind of makes it grave. So
you get them in the habit, which is great.
Yeah. So if you know something's wrong and you do it anyway, like if you know, like you always confess that first off. The other thing I did with them is I said, listen, if you need to go to confession, I will never ask you why. If you don't receive the Eucharist, I will never ask you why.
Yep.
Ever. But you do not receive immortal sin under any circumstance. Like the really teaching them that the Eucharist, that you are eating and drinking judgment upon yourself if you receive immortal sin. So if we go to mass and you don't think you can receive in good conscience, I promise you I will never ask why. I will set up to bring you to confession next time. Or if you say to me, hey, Dad, I need to go to confession, I'll never ask why you need to go. None of that. Like, I want them to know that God's mercy is open to them and they'll never receive judgment from me. I'm never going to pry into why they didn't receive. I'm never like that. That I have found has been, it has made them not worry about telling me they need to go to confession.
Right.
So that's a really good practice that I've had in my family that seems to be working. So if anybody's coming up on teen years or your kids are just making their communion, if that's any help to anybody, that seems to be working with my kids.
I'm going to be using that for sure. I don't know about you guys, but just keeping the same topic, but shifting here a little bit. I felt like I was robbed of my faith when I was going to your everyday Novus Ordo parish. And again, it's not the Novus Ordo that I'm talking about. It's the spirit of Novus Ordo and what the priest that it forms. And when I first read Uniformity with God's Will by St. Alphonsus, that was my first experience with St. Alphonsus. Man, I was so blown away. I wanted to read everything from St. Alphonsus. But I never heard of St. Alphonsus until I heard of Father Isaac.
Yeah.
And the spiritual treasures that have been hidden from us, it's felt like robbery. And I'll give you an example. I read a quote from St. Alphonsus the other day that just blew me away, and it changed my life. And I think it was somebody that introduced me to this quote. He was quoting St. Anselm. St. Alphonsus was talking about Our Lady's. She was so obsessed with the will of God. It was so perfect in her life. He said that if the Roman soldiers, if they would have had compassion on Christ and walked away, she would have put those nails in his hands herself. Like as much as it would have hurt her, this is what needed to happen.
If this is God's will,
she was going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Just that understanding changed my life, and I'm just like I don't care. Like if it hurts, I think it's effeminacy. It's like if it feels good and I want to do it, if it's against God, it's like why am I picking this moment of satisfaction versus the greater good of doing His will? And I think if you show that to teens, 18, 19, 20-year-olds, you're giving them a sense of purpose in a battle that they can get engaged in. That's how you're going to win those souls and get them ready for spiritual warfare versus the whole God loves you, God loves you, God loves you.
Yeah.
I think there needs to be that, especially among men.
Yeah, that's great advice. The other thing I've done with my kids is I told them that if you ever have something on your conscience and you come and tell me about it before I find out about it, not if you get in trouble in school and I'm going to get a phone call from the teacher, but if something's on your conscience and it's bothering you, if you come to me and talk to me about it, you will get no consequences. None. Like I will forgive anything you did. And my daughter came up to me after telling that. Everybody laughed and they all went back to the room. My daughter came up to me, and a couple months before that, my son was missing $20, and my daughter stole the $20. And she came over to me and she goes, "Daddy, I stole Nikki's $20." I said, "Not only are you not in trouble, I'm giving you the 20. Go give it to your brother." And she went and gave the 20 back to her brother. And I think like that's a good thing to do with your kids, to show them how merciful, like you really are the emblem for God the Father to your children, you know? So it was just a little thing that I did with my kids that I saw it in action, like it worked, you know? And it was like, but yeah, I think I'm going to maybe for next Lent, I'm going to follow up on your advice, and I'm going to actually start reading St. Alphonsus to the kids this Lent when it comes up. Like those are the times where you really, as a father, you have a chance to say, "Hey, this is Lent. Like, I don't care what your plans are. We're doing stuff as a family. We're doing this tonight. We're doing this tonight." Maybe do a different traditional devotion with the kids as a family.
Well, especially with Lent, St. Alphonsus's meditations on the stations are the best there is.
They are.
Bar none.
James was asking, what about the coming schism? Because that's in the title.
I forgot we put that in the title.
Sometimes we just throw a title up there to get you guys to click on it. Apparently, James.
I'm going to change. I mean, I usually change the title after we do the show anyways.
Yeah, well, we have a general idea of what we're going to talk about and what we might get to. And I was thinking, if we're talking about like the LeftCaths stuff, right? We were talking about that earlier, and we were saying how crazy they were going just over an Ad Orientem photo. And we're talking about how these people, they pretend this is about obedience to Francis, but it's really not. They want to overturn the Catholic moral foundation. Like, that is what they are hoping to get from the synod. And my point is, if after Francis you get any kind of a holy pope of any kind, if you get a Cardinal Sarah after Francis, because a lot of the cardinals do have Francis fatigue, I think you will see a schism. I think that we all have this moral obligation to stay within the church, because we know this is the church that Christ founded, and we're not going to leave just because a couple of people in the hierarchy are trying to upend that. But I don't think the other side has such qualms. I think you'll see something similar to the Reformation split.
For the German bishops, France is not left enough.
Yep.
That's what I mean. Like, they're not satisfied with what Francis is doing. Yeah. They lose their minds anytime he says anything even borderline orthodox, right? Yeah. It's like, so for them, this synod is there. Like, they really think they have it in the bag.
I think it is all, it won't so much depend necessarily on if we get a conservative pope. It's going to be dependent upon if we get a pope charitable enough that he's willing to actually excommunicate people.
Yes. You're asking a lot.
Well, I know because no pope, since Pius XII or earlier, Pius XII, did he excommunicate Feeney? Was that the last big excommunication? I think it might be.
The new Inquisition is apostolic visitations, and it doesn't root out heresy; it roots out orthodoxy. Right? That's what we're seeing with Strickland. Like, it's everything is so inverted right now. Right. We're literally looking at an upside down church. It's a very strange time. And Rob's saying that. I mean, I would say even sanction. Like, it's like excommunication. You're asking for courage, and I hope to God that we have a man in there like that could get elected. Yeah,
well, I think what's unfortunate, you guys are talking about the Ad Orientem picture, and people just having an absolute conniption because of it. Just like politics, I think we fall into this in the church. People have drawn the line, pick their side, and anytime the other side does something that they don't like, they just go crazy. It's literally just become, it's our side versus yours. We have the Pope, what we want right now. But the question is, what happens if the next Pope, I don't think it will be, what happens if the next Pope is extremely traditional in a sense?
Yeah, I don't think it needs to be a Pius XIII is my point, right? No, like, I don't think it needs, I mean, I think honestly, if you got a Benedict XVII, I think you're going to see a schism. Like, I know a lot of people think that won't fix anything.
Erdo. Erdo's one of them.
Who?
Cardinal Erdo. Hungary. He's from Hungary.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
If he becomes pope, he has a great chance of becoming pope. He would run as a pontificate similar to Benedict's.
Yeah, and I think that alone would cause a rupture, like a severe rupture, man. It's like, and I also think that if you have a long period of interregnum, like while there's no one at the helm, I think you'll see the German bishops go their way, and I think a lot of other bishops will follow them. And then if you get somebody like that in, you'll see they're just never going to come back. Like I don't know. I think that there's something coming soon that is, you're going to see a separation of the wheat and the chaff. However that happens, I don't know, but I do think that's coming, and I think that's going to be necessary. Like it's a lot of people think the separation of the wheat and the chaff comes at the end of time. It doesn't. It happens during the persecution of Antichrist. So like God starts separating the wheat from the chaff on earth before the second coming, and before the period of peace, I think, which I'm pretty sure all of us ascribe to that, right? Like that we're going to see a resurrection of the church, right? Like we're I don't think we're in the end times, like Jesus is coming any day. Like, no, I think you're going to see the total death and resurrection of the church. You will see a glorious resurrection.
We haven't seen the time of peace Our Lady offered, promised yet. So you're right.
That's how I feel. Yeah. So, guys, please like, subscribe, please join Rob and I's locals. Like we're so close to hitting that 50 mark, and that's when we will be able to do some real shows for people who support the channel. Like we're giving you guys 2 days a week here. We try to bring you guys as much we try to bring something different than anybody else is doing. We're trying to just show that like you can just have normal, friendly conversations with each other. You don't have to be condemning people that don't agree with you, things like that. Like you can have a wide variety of opinions with us, but we really do need people to support this channel. I don't want to work Saturdays anymore. I would love to have I get to stay home with my family on Saturdays. The locals videos are fire. We're gonna do something special on locals once we hit that number. So we're asking kindly, guys. Like think about all the things you give your money to. It's all garbage.
Yeah.
Like you could be supporting something that really, really, we're trying to build something special here. And eventually, dude, my dream, like I've talked to you about this, Fawaz, I want to start doing conferences. Like I really do. I want to build up an audience big enough that we can start doing conferences. And like all these people, not yet, but if we get to the number we want. All right, I'll tell you what. If we get to 50, we're doing a trivia show. I promise we'll do trivia when we hit 50 on locals.
There you go.
Yeah, Dave, we're doing trivia on locals if we hit 50. But no, I want all these people that we've been bringing on the channel: Father Isaac, Joshua Charles, Tim Gordon, Kennedy Hall, Fawaz, like all the friends that we've made, Michael Hitchborn. We want to do Father Laval. Like we don't just want to do the canceled priest thing. We want to do other things. Like we have a very solid group of friends that are friends of this channel, and we don't have to do some big major thing like the canceled priest conference. We could just do like a smaller thing where we just get to go and like, I honestly think it would be cool if like you guys have a men's group and you want me and Rob to come out. Maybe I'll give a small talk or something, and me and Rob will just come and hang with you guys for the weekend.
Can I tell you what we're looking to do in our parish?
Yeah.
Just the Somerset parish, but there's a community of guys. Your cousin and I have been talking about this. We eventually want to buy at least a little spot in Georgetown downtown. It's a beautiful spot where we have it's pretty much a Catholic-owned, community-owned pub with cigars. I would be in charge of getting event speakers once a month.
Yeah.
And we'd have guys just come in. And
that's like a legit men's group.
It's a legit men's group, and it's a legit community of trade workers that just give one to one another, because we want to create a commonwealth economy of just within the Catholic parish community and be away from the system. So once that gets set up, you guys can come on. We'll have cigars, listen to you guys talk. You guys can do a show on there live. It'll be great.
Yeah, listen, the average men's group will get a Catholic speaker to come in. He'll give his talk for an hour and then split. I don't want to do that.
Right.
Like I want to be able, like if you guys have a men's group and you want Rob and I to come, we will both come and spend the weekend with you guys. Like we'll go and do like fraternity for a day. You know what I mean? Like we'll do a thing at the parish, and then we all go out for cigars and drinks afterward, and we actually spend time together, because I really think it's very important to spend time with other Catholics, man. Like you can't just do this stuff on an island by yourself. Like you have to be able to have fraternity with other men, especially. And if there's women that are like, if it's not just a men's group and like the women want to do something, like we could just do something. Like if me and Rob got to bring the wives, we'll bring the wives. May cost you guys a little more.
Joe, I don't know if they'll let us into Australia, and even if they do, I'm worried about being let out.
No, Joe, we'll fly you into America before that happens.
Yeah. Can I make a push real quickly, if you guys don't mind?
100%.
If anybody is interested, if you have a parish interested, I'm starting to rack up all these gigs. So I'm starting to do performances. I got one in LA, North Carolina, Texas. I'm going to Michigan. I was just in Virginia. Young adult and youth ministry, confirmation program, whatever it is, let them know. I'll come in as long as they want. What I do is I come in, I do performances, I speak in between, I give the traditional faith, but I do some rap stuff in between. And here's the thing. I ask that my expenses are covered, and the way my stipend works, I don't have a set stipend. I'm doing St. Joseph style. Whatever the parish can afford, whatever the parish wants to give, I'll be happy for. I don't care what the price is. Whatever they give, I'll accept. I don't have a set.
Yeah, as long as your expenses are covered. After that, it's just charity. Like
charity.
That's
donate.
That's
my
awesome.
Family would appreciate it. So if y'all got something, that'd be great. Yeah, I'll come.
I'm telling you guys right now, we are going to eventually do like it's not going to be something huge like the Catholic Identity Conference or the Coalition for Canceled Priests Conference. It's going to be a smaller thing where we just get a venue. Enoch's going to open. He's going to MC it. He's going to do some music, and you're going to get a couple of speakers in between. And it'll be, an overnight. It'll be a weekend thing. It'll be like a Friday night into Saturday, and then we get to spend Saturday together. Like this is really what I would like to do. It's like I just think these kinds of things are important, and if that means I got to start, writing new talks and things like that, I mean. I really enjoyed giving that talk, man.
Man, it was such an awesome talk.
I appreciate it. Believe it or not, everyone, Anthony did write it. I didn't even get to read it beforehand.
I wanted it to be a surprise.
Incredible.
I wanted it to be a surprise. But I mean, listen, a lot of the stuff is the stuff Rob and I have been working out on air, right? Like he's helped me develop so many of those ideas, even though he didn't write it. Like talking to Rob verbally is what helped me figure a lot of these things out. If it wasn't for Rob, that talk doesn't exist. But it was a really cool experience to go and like present my thesis to everybody, and the reception I got was so awesome, man.
Amazing talk.
Fawaz, where can how do people contact you if they want to have you at an event?
So they can email me holy40project@gmail.com.
And follow him on Instagram, Holy40Project.
Yeah.
What happened with that? What happened with the Holy 40 Project?
So I still have it. And I have an email list. People email me. I just send it to them. It's free now, so anybody can have it. If you want the Holy 40 Project, let me know. I'll send it to you through your email. It helps. It helps eradicate the vices that you have, the predominant vices. It's very Thomistic in its approach.
Because I knew you from that before I ever talked to you.
Is that right?
I've been following you on Holy 40 Project from forever.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Like long before I even knew who you were,
A lot of people did that, and they were like, what's this that they're rapping? And it's like, most people don't know that I've been making music since 8th grade. I just stopped for 10 years.
You see, you know Ruslan, the Protestant rapper?
No.
You got to set me. I got to get this guy on.
Ruslan.
Yeah, Ruslan. He's a Protestant rapper. He's from, he's got like, oh man. I think he's from, oh man, I don't know. What's your original heritage?
I'm Syriac.
Yeah, he is too. I'm pretty sure he's Syriac.
Really?
He's Protestant. Yeah, but I like his channel. He does a lot of cultural stuff, so he doesn't get too deep into theology. So I could tolerate it. He's not going to. He's just talking like cultural things from a Christian perspective. So he's one of the few Protestants I'll actually listen to. But all right, guys, this was a great show, man. When they go fast, it was a good one.
Yeah, thanks. This was a blast. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, dude, I love having you on, man. Anytime you want to come and hang, you got an open invite.
Hold on. There's a MAGA rap scene?
I can't stand it, man. They're ambulance chasers. That's what I call them. They're just chasing the next topic, making a song about it so they can stay relevant.
Oh, is that Marjorie Taylor Greene rap song? Oh, man, that was so cringe.
I'm so glad we didn't have to play that tonight.
Don't get me started on the music industry. It's just become just
it was
a piece
so
of garbage.
cringe, that guy. And that guy, like, yeah, he's acting like he's a MAGA rapper. Then he's got other songs where he's talking about pimping girls and stuff. It's like, come on, stop it, dude. What are you doing? It's like Lauren Boebert. I started getting on her today because she's acting like she's putting up tweets with pictures of family values. Like, you left your husband and children to go, like, you now what? You go and live in your best life as a congresswoman, and you abandon your family, and you're gonna tell me about Joe Biden's bribes? You're infinitely worse than Joe Biden. You abandon your husband, filed for divorce. Go home.
But Anthony, we gotta save the country. I'm gonna save the country myself.
Save your marriage. How are you gonna save the country? You can't save your marriage. Taking moral advice from a woman like you.
Yep.
These people nauseate me. We're gonna save the country. No, you're not. You're not saving anything.
No.
I'm not saving anything. These people, honestly, man.
What did Chesterton say? What did Chesterton say? Raising a woman can. What is it? What did he say? Something about woman has more worth. She gives more to the world raising one child the right way than a million votes.
It's crazy. It's like you. I don't understand anybody that could get behind a person saying they're going to save the country when they couldn't save their family. Like, I have absolutely no, like, dude, especially even her husband, dude. Like, my thing with men is like, dude, you have one job to keep your family together. Yep. You can't keep your family together. Come on, man. And I understand people make mistakes, and later on, you know, it all happens. But Rob's going straight to heaven. No purgatory for him. Yep, he's my favorite. Rob's everybody's favorite.
That's because, yeah, like I told Anthony today, or I think you said it, Ant. People don't realize I'm the bad cop.
No, every once in a while, Rob's ruthless side will come out, and people are like, "Oh my goodness,
man,
Rob said that." I'm like,
tweet was good.
I'm the nice one, though. You guys, I talk tough once in a while, but Rob's not the nice one. I'm the nice one. If you ever meet me in person, I'm gonna be super friendly. Rob's gonna be like, "Oh, these people." But Waz, man, you're one of my favorite people in the world, man. I cannot wait to meet you in person. I'm so glad that I befriended you, that I forced you to be my friend. We're building quite a fun crew here, man. So, guys, thank you for joining us. Please go join our locals. Hit like, subscribe. We will see you on Thursday with Kennedy Hall. Hall Thursday. We have a very fun show at Kennedy Hall. We're going to break down Jordan Peterson and Bill Maher's conversation about the Bible, and we'll see if any good news stories pop up, and that's what we're going to get into with Kennedy. Kennedy is also one of my favorite people, man. What a brilliant dude.
Very smart.
So, all right, Rob, take us out.
I'm not gay no more. I am.
This goes out to all you men out there who are inclined to submit yourself to the lowest faculties in the most pathetic manner. You effeminate man think you were created in order to consume endless amount of pleasure without any consequences? Put your damn video games and smartphones down and pick up something heavy. Do something arduous for once. Pray daily. Submit yourself under the interior discipline. Learn a trade. Buy some land. Get married and have lots of kids so that may you one day raise a generation of virtuous warriors. Learn the rules of the retrograde. Done with y'all.